The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Happy morning, students. I know you all are doing good, busy with your classes right away now and also preparing for your improvement exam. So wish you good luck, do well, and let us begin the class today. But before that, in the previous class we were discussing about resistance, conductance and also about the factors that are affecting, influencing the electronic and electrolytic conductance, like we were seeing few videos also. So I hope you got an idea about it, and I'm sure there will not be any doubts for you. So let us begin today's class. Today's class we are going to see about how to measure the conductivity of ionic solutions. As we have discussed before, ionic solutions are those where the ions will dissociate, that is the solution will dissociate into ions, right? So when they dissociate into ions, ions are the carriers, charge carriers, they carry the current. It's not the electrons as in case of metallic conductance. So here, before getting into the conductivity of ionic solutions, we need to learn an important term which we call it as a cell constant. The term we call it as a cell constant. As it's already been said, cell constant, we know the cell constant will be specific for a specific cell. Whichever cell we take, that value will be for that particular cell alone. Now how to go about with the cell constant? Now before getting into cell constant, we need to know something about calculating resistance. As I already told you in the previous class, resistance is a force which will not allow the electricity to pass through the substance, stopping or preventing. We say avoiding, not permitting. So when I say resistance, the resistance can be calculated using a Wheatstone bridge. I told you, right? So now when we use a Wheatstone bridge for calculating the resistance of an electronic conductance, that is a metallic conductance, in case of metallic conductance, what happens actually, the electrons are the charge carriers. So when one electron enters, there will be one electron which is leaving. One electron enters, the other electron leaves. Again, entering, leaving. This will happen simultaneously. So there will be no chemical reaction happening. The substance will be made in such a way that, or is in a position in such a way that there is no chemical change happening, no chemical composition changing. Nothing is happening in a electronic conductance. And what happens is that we can use a direct current as well because there is no chemical reaction there. But what happens when you use an ionic solution? Now when we use an ionic solutions, I told you ions are the charge carriers. And in an ionic solution, there are reactions happening. There is a chemical reaction that is happening. Problems that are happening for ionic solution. The first one is use of a direct current. When we use a direct current, there will be a chemical reaction happening. So what happens? The chemical composition will change. We will not be getting a proper result, that is accurate answer. The next one is, since this is an ionic solution, because in case of metallic conductance or electrolytic conductance, to calculate the resistance, we use we use a wire and connect to the solid because it is a metal. You can connect it. But imagine children what happens in case of solution. It's a liquid. So in liquid solution, you cannot just insert a wire and keep it. You need some solid support which can hold the wire and help in carrying the current. So what happens? These two are the problems, the main issues that are with the ionic solutions. Now, what is the solution for this? I mean, what are the things or what things we should consider to make these problems get stopped, that is to overcome these problems? First one is use of an alternate current. We know alternate current, what happens? Indirect current, it passes through only one direction. But here, when we use an alternate current, the reaction will start fluctuating. What do you mean by fluctuation? We know when we use a direct current, there will be only one direction in which the reaction is happening. But when we use an alternate current, the reaction can happen in both the directions. That is, the reaction can take place in the forward direction as well as in the backward direction. So what happens here is, when we use an alternate current, the net reaction will not change, or there will be no change in the reaction. Whatever reaction is happening, that should happen, because in case of ionic solution, as we have already discussed, oxidation and reduction reaction occurs. The reaction, ionic solution is a solution where there is an oxidation and reduction, that is redox reaction happening simultaneously. So if there is going to be a direct current, there will be a change in the oxidation and reduction reaction. So the whole concentration will change, the whole composition will change. So when we use an alternate current, the reaction is adjusted in such a way that the reaction keeps on fluctuating. So there will be no change in the net reaction. And the second option is use of a conductivity cell. Now what is a conductivity cell? If you remember, in 11th standard we were learning about cathode ray experiment with a glass apparatus, that is a cylinder like glass tube. It is such a similar apparatus which we will be using for a conductivity cell. Now you can see here there is a glass apparatus which is in the form of a cylinder. Now this cylinder is made in such a way that whose length and cross-sectional area is already known to us. How do we calculate the area? The area of the whole apparatus will be giving us the A. Now to calculate the length, what are we doing here is, you can see here two electrodes. There are two electrodes which are being coated with platinized platinum. Now why do we use platinized platinum as a coating for these electrodes? Now we know that's an ionic solution. So if I am going to use an electrode which are reactive, which can undergo a chemical reaction along with this solution, ionic solution, will I get my result accurately? Will I be able to know the accurate result? No. Because if I use an electrode which is actively participating in the reaction, now assume that they can lose electron or they can gain electrons. So they keep on participating in the chemical reaction, we will not be able to get the desired result. So what do we do is, we will be using inert electrodes. What is inert? Inert means which are inactive, which do not take part or participate in the chemical reaction. So we use electrodes which are coated with platinized platinum. So what happens? Those are kept inside the glass apparatus, that is a cylinder-like apparatus at both the ends. And the distance between the two electrodes, you can see there is a distance between these two electrodes which will be the length, that is L. So you know the length, you know the area, and you can calculate the resistance, because we know resistance is proportional to L by A. So I hope you are able to follow, children. So what happens is that these apparatus, you have been inserting two inert electrodes which are coated with platinized platinum, and the wires, the end of the electrodes will be connected to the wires which will be carrying the electricity. So this is a conductivity cell. So which is a conductor here? The conductor is not a solid. The conductor is an ionic solution, it's a liquid. So the ionic solution which is inside this cylinder glass apparatus, which is being supporting with two electrodes carrying the wires, is a conductivity cell. the ionic solution inside the conductivity cell or inside this glass apparatus will behave as a conductor. So once you know the length, you know the area, you can calculate the resistance. I hope you are able to understand, children. Now, to measure the resistance. How do we measure the resistance? We know R is proportional to L by A, and to remove the proportional, we use the proportionality constant, that is rho, which we call it as resistivity. So, but now, since we are dealing with conductivity and conductance, I want to remove this resistivity. What is resistivity? Resistivity is inverse of conductivity, or I will say reciprocal. So what I will do is, in place of resistivity, I put 1 by K, which is kappa. So 1 by K into L by A is equal to my resistance. Now here, what is my L by A? L by A is a cell constant, which will be given as G star. Our cell constant is G star, which is L by A. Now this L by A will be specific for specific conductivity cell, where each cell, each conductivity cell will be having its own L and A value. Now what are the dimensions? Dimensions means units. What will be the unit of cell constant? What is our formula? It is L by D. Now we know L is calculated in meters, or it also in centimeters. Now what is area? Again L square. So it will be meter into meter, which is again G star will be L, which is again meter or in centimeters. But actually, what is the thing that we need to do? We want to know the conductivity. Now do you think using as conductivity cell will be helping us? Yes, but how? Measurement of L by A can be unreliable. What does it mean? I can't rely you. Rely means it may not be giving me the same dimension value always. What could be the reason? Now the reason is, just imagine, children, I have put my ionic solution inside. But this is my neck of my cylinder. Though I am not filling the solution till the neck, it is just 3/4 of the cylinder, till I have some more gaps which are left free. So will it be giving me the entire area of cross section? Is my A value perfect, accurate? No, definitely I should give a thought, because we know the solution is filled till the neck of the apparatus. It might be giving me the correct value for A, but here my solution is not filled completely. And what happens if I am going to increase the temperature? Assume if I am going to increase my temperature, what will happen? This is my solution, and we know any liquid solution, the volume increases when the temperature increases. What is that law called as? Gayatri? Yes, it is called as Boyle's law. Boyle's law says that whenever there is an increase in temperature, the solution, that is the volume, also increases. So here, when I am going to increase the temperature, the solution expands. So the entire apparatus starts expanding. So what will be happening to my platinized electrodes? The electrodes also start moving apart. They keep on moving slowly apart. So what will happen to the length? Because as I told you, length is the distance between the two electrodes. So definitely when the distance between the two electrodes increases, the length also increases. So there will be an increase in the length, or I can say the change in the length or change in the area. So when there is a change in the length and area, again, I cannot call this as a cell constant, right? So the dimensions, that's why I say, may not be reliable. Sometimes it can be unreliable at certain conditions. So G star will be determined. Now how to determine the G star? I cannot first get the G star and calculate my resistance. Instead, what we are going to do? We are going to calculate G star by measuring the resistance of the cell. First, I am going to measure the resistance of the cell whose conductivity is already known. I know the conductivity of the cell. I will be calculating my resistance. So once I know my resistance and conductivity, I can calculate my G star. Because here R is equal to 1 by K into G star.
So what will be G star here? R into K. You're able to get me? Because of the reason where the values of L by A may not be reliable, we will find a way in such a way that we calculate the resistance of a cell whose conductivity is already known to us, and once we know the conductivity, we can calculate the resistance using the apparatus, and once we know these two, we will be calculating the G star. So this is how we will be using an apparatus to calculate the cell constants. Now once we know the cell constant, now this plays a very vital role in calculating the conductivity of ionic solution. So let us see how to go about for calculating the conductivity of ionic solution. So we will be learning about the conductivity of ionic solution, how it can be measured. Now as we have learned now, G star, that which is a cell constant, is given by L by A, or you can say resistance into conductivity. Now what happens here is, you can see a setup here of a Wheatstone bridge, and you have a variable resistor R1 where you can adjust the resistance by yourself, and there is an unknown resistance which is R2 of a conductivity cell, and you have two more resistors R3 and R4 whose resistance are already known, and there is a detector which can be a headphone also, which is helping us to detect the changes that are happening in the bridge. And you have an oscillator here which is having an alternating current of 500 to 5000 cycles per second. Why do we use alternate current? Because as we have already discussed, when we use a direct current, what will happen? Adira, can you tell me? Yes, when we use a direct current, it will make the reaction happen. So when there are reactions happening inside, what will happen? The entire composition will change. So we don't want that to happen. So we use an alternate current so that the reactions are kept nil. That is, the reaction keeps on fluctuating. The reaction happens in both the directions. So you will be able to calculate the answer correctly. So now what are we going to do here? We are going to adjust the variable resistor, and we are going to use a tuning fork. The oscillator can be anything which has got a certain frequency. So when that is being set, you can see that as long as there is no current passing through the Wheatstone bridge, the bridge becomes balanced. As there is no current passing through it, the bridge becomes balanced, and once the bridge becomes balanced, we will be able to calculate the value of R2. Now what is R2? R2 can be given out by this combination R1 into R4 by R3. So we know what is R3 and R4, and we are adjusting R1 according to our own choice. Once we know these three parameters, we can calculate the unknown resistance, that is R2. So once R2 is known, so we know the cell constant, we know R2, and we know how we can calculate the value for conductivity. So what happens here? Conductivity is given by G star by R. Now what is important here? We know what is conductivity. Now this conductivity will differ at different temperatures. When you vary the temperature, the value of this conductivity keeps on changing. Now why this keeps on changing is because of two simple reasons. That is the ions that dissociate in the solution. That is the charge and the size of the ions keeps on changing. Since they differ, the concentration, or I can say the conductivity, also differs. Now at that point of time, what happens? As there are more number of ions getting dissociated into the solution, the conductivity will not be perfect, or there will be always a difference in the conductivity of the solution. Hence, no more we can use a normal conductivity. Instead, we start using a new term which we call it as molar conductivity. As we know, in concentration in solutions, we are dealing with a term called mole, molar concentration. So here, we are going to use molar conductivity, which will be denoted by the symbol lambda m. Again, it's a Greek symbol. We know we have been using this lambda. You remember, children, for wavelength? Last year we were calculating the wavelength using the symbol lambda. Now this is a small letter, this is a capital lambda. Greek, though we don't know Greek letters, we have not been familiarized with. This is a capital lambda, this is a small lambda which we use for denoting wavelength. So here I put a lambda with a small m, which is telling it is molar conductivity. Now what is molar conductivity now? Molar conductivity is nothing but kappa by C, which is nothing but conductivity by concentration for different solution. Now what is the unit for conductivity? We know it is Siemens meter inverse. And for concentration, we know though we are dealing with solutions and liters. Solutions, when I say molarity, number of moles of solute dissolved in liter of solution. So but here, since my numerator is in meters, I make sure that I put denominator also in meters. So I put mole meter cube, mole per meter cube or mole meter power minus 3. So once you solve this, you get for molar conductivity as S m square mole inverse. Now, assume that we get a problem where instead of meters, liters are given. If liters are given, how do I go about with my calculations? So at that time, we calculate, that is for 1 mole per meter cube. I repeat, for 1 mole per meter cube, just multiply 1000 into molarity. That is, you multiply it with 1000, 10 power cube. So 1000 liter per meter cube into molarity, which is mole per liter. Okay, once you get the values in liters. If you get the values in liters, you should use this equation. It is given very clearly in your textbook about liters, meter and also in centimeters. I hope children you are able to follow what is a Wheatstone bridge or how to calculate the unknown resistance using a variable resistor passing through the detectors, right? And then once the cell constant and conductivity is known, we can calculate the molar conductivity. Now we will learn about variation of conductivity and molar conductivity with concentration. So here, till now we were learning about what is conductivity, why we introduced the term molar conductivity. Now, to understand what happens to the conductivity and molar conductivity with comparison of concentration, we are going to see why this is happening. Now let me just tell you, before getting into this, a question arises like, when does a solution conduct electricity or why does a solution conduct electricity? Now when you take a pure water, when we take pure water and when we pass electric current, there are not enough ions present inside this pure water like H plus or OH minus ions, which are not fair enough to carry the charge, that is to carry the electricity. But what happens the same situation if I am going to add an ionic compound into it? Assume I am going to add a common salt, that is sodium chloride. The moment I add sodium chloride into it, we know this ionic compound, when added into the water, will start dissociating. So when it dissociates into ions. It can be cations or anions. It dissociates immediately. So those ions will be the charge carriers. They carry the electricity. So what I want to tell you is pure water which do not conduct electricity start conducting when an ionic compound is added to it, or when I say when I add an electrolyte. So here I say my conductivity decreases with decrease in concentration, or I will say it increases with increase in concentration. Now what does it mean? Now if I am going to have more number of ions, like I say when the solution becomes more concentrated, there are going to be more number of ions which are present in the solution. So there will be more dissociation happening. So there will be more electricity. So I can say there will be more conductivity. On the other hand, if I am going to take a solution which is a weak electrolyte on dilution, there will be less number of ions that are dissociated. So number of ions per unit volume will decrease, which will decrease the conductivity. So here, whatever may be the situation, if it is a weak electrolyte or it is a strong electrolyte, the conductivity decreases with decrease in concentration, or it increases with increase in concentration. What is the reason for that? It is just because the number of ions per unit volume increases or decreases with concentration. When you increase the concentration or when you decrease the concentration, the number of unit ions, the number of ions that are getting dissociated per unit volume, if it increases, my conductivity will increase. If it decreases, the conductivity will decrease. So that is the reason for the change in the conductivity with respect to concentration. Now we know conductance G is equal to kappa into A by L. Now kappa is the conductivity. Now we know we take a unit length of 1 meter and a cross sectional area of 1 meter square. So 1 by 1 becomes 1. So here I confirm that my conductance will be equal to my conductivity. So therefore when conductivity increases, the conductance also increases. Now this is with conductivity. But will the same thing happen with molar conductivity? No. This is a different scenario. What is the situation in molar conductivity? Molar conductivity is the conductance of volume V of solution containing 1 mole of electrolyte between the electrodes of unit length in area A. If you remember, we were just discussing now about the conductivity cell having 2 platinized electrodes, and the distance between the 2 electrodes is L, and the total volume occupied by the cylinder or by the glass tube is the area. So we know volume occupied by the solution comprises the whole setup apparatus, which is my area of cross section A, and my unit length, or I say length, is between the 2 electrodes. That time when I say 1 mole of an electrolyte, it is nothing but 1 mole of a solute. Right? 1 mole of an electrolyte is 1 mole of a solute. What is the situation there? Molar conductivity is equal to kappa into A by L. But here my length is 1 meter, but my area is nothing but the volume occupied by 1 mole of a solute. That is, the volume occupied by 1 mole of a solute gives my area of the apparatus, that is my conductivity cell. So here my area will be is equal to V. So I will write molar conductivity is equal to kappa into V. But what happens here exactly? For dilute solution, 1 mole of a solute will be large volume. When I dilute the solution, my volume increases. The total volume increases, so area also increases. So 1 mole of the solute will be present in my large volume when the solution becomes dilute. In the dilute solution, 1 mole of a solute will be present in large volume, which means as long as I dilute the solution, when the concentration becomes low, the area becomes more, or I will say the volume becomes more. So 1 mole of my solute will be present in the large volume. But if the concentration is going to be high, when the concentration of the solution increases, the 1 mole of the solute will be present in the small volume, where my area will be decreasing. So here, what do we conclude from here? The molar conductivity increases with decrease in concentration. Why? Because as concentration decreases, what happens here? The volume will increases. When there is a decrease in concentration, nothing but the solution becomes dilute. So the volume will be more. So when the volume becomes more, the molar conductivity is also more, because here I say molar conductivity is directly proportional to my volume. So when volume increases, molar conductivity increases. And what happens in the other situation? The concentration, if it is increasing, when the concentration becomes more, what happens? The volume will become less. So when there is a decrease in the volume, the molar conductivity decreases. Again, from the formula, it is very clear that molar conductivity is directly proportional to the volume. So increase in volume increases the molar conductivity, decrease in volume decreases the molar conductivity. And this is just, I want you to recollect the formula where kappa is equal to G star by resistance. If you want to calculate the conductivity, it is cell constant by resistance. And if you know your conductivity and concentration, you can calculate molar conductivity. So here again molar conductivity is equal to kappa by C, which is conductivity by concentration. From this formula alone, it is very clear that as the concentration increases, molar conductivity decreases. As the concentration decreases, molar conductivity increases. which means molar conductivity is inversely proportional to the concentration. So here this plays a very important role. Now there is something that is important because we know the value of conductivity is also getting changed, the value of volume is also getting changed. So what may happen to the value of molar conductivity? Now for this, a decrease in the conductivity value on dilution is compensated by increase in volume. That is, when the volume increase or decrease, that value will be much more higher than the value that is being created by the conductivity. For example, I will say the conductivity is decreased by a value of 2, then the volume will be decreased by a value of 6. 6 minus 2 will be 4, which means the volume difference is 4 times more than as compared to that of the conductivity. So that's why we will not have these issues in our problems. They will be just giving you the value and ask you to calculate our molar conductivity. Now, as we know, the concentration can decrease or the concentration can increase. These are the two situations possible. But there are specific situations or there are a particular time where the concentration becomes absolutely zero. That is, I will say the solution is perfectly dilute. So what happens at that time? When there is no more solute is present in the solution and the concentration is perfectly zero, at that time you call it as a limiting molar conductivity. That is, you write here lambda m and you put a naught there. So that we call it as a limiting molar conductivity. So here it is very important for us to know the variation of conductivity or molar conductivity with difference in the concentration. When I say difference in the concentration, it is not only our dilute or concentrated one, also it can be a weak and a strong electrolyte. So I think children, you have understood about the variation in conductivity. Now you will be seeing a video which will help you to find out more about concentration and dilute solution conductivity, and also there is a video about Poldras law. You see that, and then with the next class we will be starting with Poldras law application and then we will go for electrolysis. Okay, so with this I am winding up the class. I hope you understood today's session very clearly. There is no doubt in this, and if you have any doubts, please let me know. Take care, stay home, stay safe. Bye.
Molar conductivity and Kohlrausch's law. An electrolyte, on dissolution in a solvent, gives free ions in the solution to make the substance electrically conductive. The conducting power of all the ions produced by dissolving 1 mole of an electrolyte in a solution is called the molar conductivity. It shows a variation with the concentration for strong and weak electrolytes. Molar conductivity is denoted by lambda. Weak electrolytes, when dissolved in a solvent, dissociate into ions only to a small extent in the solution. This indicates that the number of ions present in the solution depends on their degree of dissociation with the dilution. On dilution, the degree of dissociation increases, resulting in the dissociation of more molecules into ions, and the molar conductivity of the solution increases. On further dilution, complete dissociation of the electrolyte takes place and the molar conductivity reaches its limiting value. This conductivity is known as molar conductivity at infinite dilution, and the degree of dissociation at infinite dilution is 1. Strong electrolytes, when dissolved in a solvent, completely dissociate into ions at all concentrations, indicating that there is no effect of dilution on the number of ions in the solution. There is a great interionic force of attraction between oppositely charged ions. This results in the decrease of their conducting ability. When this concentrated solution is diluted, there is separation of ions to a large extent, resulting in a decrease in the interionic forces. Thus, molar conductivity increases with dilution. At a point of very high dilution, there is no appreciable attraction between the ions. The molar conductivity thus reaches a limited value. This is known as molar conductivity at infinite dilution. Friedrich Wilhelm Georg Kohlrausch, a German physicist, observed the molar conductivity at infinite dilution for different strong electrolytes and summarized his observations in the form of Kohlrausch's law. It states that at infinite dilution with complete dissociation, each ion makes a definite contribution towards molar conductivity of the electrolyte, irrespective of the nature of the other ion with which it is associated. Kohlrausch's law can also be interpreted as the molar conductivity at infinite dilution for an electrolyte is the sum of the contributions of each ion from the electrolyte. Now, let's look at some strong electrolytes to illustrate Kohlrausch's law. Consider two strong electrolytes, sodium chloride and potassium chloride. At infinite dilution, there is no appreciable attraction between the ions. Molar conductivity reaches a limited value, known as molar conductivity at infinite dilution. The molar conductivity of potassium chloride is 149.9, and that of sodium chloride is 126.5. The difference between the two conductivities is 23.4. Let's consider the molar conductivity of two more electrolytes, potassium nitrate and sodium nitrate, at infinite dilution. The molar conductivity of potassium nitrate is 145, and that of sodium nitrate is 121.6. The difference between the two conductivities is 23.4. The difference between the molar conductivity at infinite dilution of different electrolytes with a similar anion is the same. This implies that the difference in the molar conductivities is actually the difference in the molar conductivity of potassium and sodium ions in their solution. Each ion contributes independently towards the value of molar conductivity at infinite dilution. This is known as Kohlrausch's law of independent migration of ions. Let's quickly summarize. For weak electrolytes, the number of ions present in the solution depends on their degree of dissociation with dilution. They dissociate to a lesser extent. The degree of dissociation increases with the increase in dilution, which results in the increase in the molar conductivity of the solution. The limiting value of molar conductivity for the complete dissociation of electrolyte is known as the molar conductivity at infinite dilution. For strong electrolytes, in concentrated solutions, there are great interionic forces of attraction between oppositely charged ions, resulting in the decrease in their conducting ability. When diluted, the interionic forces decrease and the molar conductivity increases. At a point of very high dilution, When there is no appreciable attraction between the ions, molar conductivity reaches a limiting value, known as the molar conductivity at infinite dilution. Kohlrausch's law states that at infinite dilution with complete dissociation, each ion makes a definite contribution towards molar conductivity of the electrolyte, irrespective of the nature of the other ion with which it is associated.